Hello, Soul Tribe. I'm KamalaDevi, and I'm honored, delighted to be here with Aurelie Devon, who's a love leader. And I have been brainstorming right before this call. We've been brainstorming on this really juicy topic of receiving your worth. And so I wanted to introduce you to Aurelie, who's a channel for orgasmic awakening. And how else would you describe what it is that you do?
I like to call myself a sensual soul guide and an erotic energy healer, and all the ways that you can embody your empowered pleasure and sensual sovereignty is what I like to play in.
I love it. And through the year that I've been, this past seasons that I've been working with you, I've seen your full range, which is so congruent. When it comes to pleasure, it's like you're a chocolate connoisseur and into baking. And then you're also a dancer, which is so embodied, so like you have all these like tantric arts in your medicine bag that you bring to the deep intimacy and abundance work that you're doing. So yeah, we were brainstorming on this radical topic of receiving, and I just want to hear more of your unique perspective, because so many people, especially in tantric and erotic arts, there's such a emphasis on service and giving and serving, and some people don't even know how to receive. And so why do you think that is?
Well, I feel like receiving is such a kind of a universal element, and it touches on so many different areas of our life. But if you can learn how to receive right in pleasure, it affects everything. And I think it definitely stems from a sense of, not feeling good enough and unworthiness when it's really hard to, or it makes you uncomfortable to receive.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely see that a lot with my clients, where they're like, but I need to give pleasure. That's how that's like me receiving more pleasure.
That's how I know I'm needed. Yeah.
Yeah. That's actually my source of turn on. I'm like, no, you're your source. Can you receive all of you right now?
Yeah, and I want to just call myself out that there is a high value for receiving, and I love it when I'm with a lover or a beloved who knows how to receive. Like, that's a gift itself. And the tattletelling on myself is that I often put the emphasis on contribution and service, and so I'm loving, like, it sounds like you recently had a bigger, you've expanded your own awakening around receiving. Yeah. Tell me a little bit
in
about
multiple dimensions. Like, I have like a sexual story I will share about what that looks like. But also, I mean, there's always a sexual story that I have.
Yeah. So we'll leave that as a teaser. I want to hear about your trip to Hawaii.
Yeah. So I felt this island calling to me for years, and I finally allowed myself to receive the message and go. And it all, just the magic with which it unfolded, the ease, like just from the very beginning of where I was going to stay, like allowing myself to receive that it could be that easy, and not talking myself out of like, no, there must be some hook here. This must not be real. This must be a scam. It really can't be that easy. Like, that's where the receiving started. Really just in like, no, it really is. You decided you were going to follow this intuitive nudge, your heart's desire, this calling of like the actual land to itself. Like, obviously plants and animals and parcels of land and islands, like they all have an energy, and they're all this beautiful alive being.
And specifically, this is in Kauai. How long were you there recently?
I was supposed to only be there for 2 weeks. And then I was like, this is my home. And so I stayed an additional week. And that was just like where, like, I feel confident I can manifest almost anything now, because I spent those 3 weeks like manifesting. And now I'm like stepping into my dream life. And I was like, wow, that was really fast.
Right. So now Mama Kauai is calling you to live there.
Well, she called me while I was there, so much so that everyone already thought I lived there. And
Right.
it's like all the rules don't apply, like when you're willing to receive. And I was really conscious to be in the question of like, I'm open to saying yes to living here wherever she wants me to be, wherever parcel of land like she would like me to be a steward of. If it's meant to be here, I'm open to that. If it's meant to be somewhere else, I'm open to that. And just allowing myself to receive the guidance and the information from the island herself. And she taught me that very early on with a
Mm.
little sexual type of lesson right at the very beginning.
Yeah. And then just to name, like it's because it's, I feel the alignment in so much, and the surrender and the trust, and like, okay, I'm going to receive, and there's a sort of mystery walk that goes with it. But you're now, weeks into this journey. From what I understand, at the beginning there was a little bit like, am I worthy, and is this real, and what,
Yeah.
what was that like?
Well, was I even worthy to just like take 3 weeks
Mhm.
to go do that? Like there was a lot of that. I bought myself a first class plane ticket. And
Ooh.
I watched how that brought up stuff, like how I did that. And it was like, that was a beautiful, like transformational lesson just within that. And, and so then I got to step into that new level of like worth
Yeah.
and feeling worthy of gifting myself with that, not needing it to come from outside of me. And like, no, I love you that much. I want to give this to you.
Yeah, what a self-love declaration.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so that was really, so it started with the plane ticket and then it really like amplified because I just opened myself up to start like looking at houses just to be in the possibility. And I've imagined myself for a long time now. Well, my guides and angels have showed me that really the next phase of kind of my business and my purpose is like to be in a space that is supportive of all the energetics of transformation I do.
Right.
Because, wherever we're orgasming, wherever we're in this bliss and ecstasy, we are transforming like the energy around us. Like when there's like 20 meditators in one place, they've done studies, right, where like they meditate consistently in high crime or violent areas and the crime decreases.
Yeah, it amplifies,
Yep.
that positive prayer field.
Yeah. So I've always known I wanted to like have an orgasmic temple that was being one of those points on the earth. And there's many of us that I know are here to do something similar.
Mhm.
You are one of them, right? Where we're just like, yeah, creating these beams of light through our bliss. So I kept getting these visions of tropical. I knew it was tropical. I knew it would have like a dance studio and a temple on the property. And there would have multiple dwellings so that I could have like a living space, but then also workspace that was really sacred and separate, and like amazing bathtubs and just a lot, yeah, a lot of indoor outdoor, because I love teaching people about like plant gasms and how to, work with nature in the pleasure realm. And there was this one house for sale that I kept seeing. And I noticed how I was like, well, you should just go look at it. Like, I was like, just go look at it. Like, just get your feet on the property, see if that's even what you would want. But it was like in the multiple figure millions, like 8 million. And I watched how I didn't want to call the realtor because I was like, I'm not in that club yet. I'm not worthy yet of living in a multi-million-dollar house.
Yeah.
And I was like, shit, well, how am I going to manifest that if I don't think I'm worthy of it? Because it really has nothing to do with money. Like, that was the biggest lesson. It had nothing to do with the amount of money in my bank account, whether I could or could not have a down payment at all. And it was a beautiful reminder of like, okay, how can I get my energy into congruence with a multi-million-dollar property?
Right. It has more to do with frequency and
Yep.
alignment. And yeah,
Yep.
gorgeous that you recognize that instead of just saying, hey, I'm uncomfortable with this, I'm going to run and hide. And
Yeah.
like, I'm uncomfortable with this, so I have to raise my vibration.
Yeah. Well, thankfully, I also have coaches and spiritual teachers in my life that I go to when I need to be facilitated, as we all do. We all have guides that like, catch us and help us like open up to that next level. And this was my next level.
need each other for that, for sure.
Yeah.
And so how did it go?
So once I recognized that my only job was, again, not to figure out the how. And I know we've all heard this a million times, but somehow it's kind of like the same. I feel like it applies actually to orgasm. Like there is no one way and no one path to an orgasmic experience. So can you like let go of the how it's going to happen? So I did that with this. And the whole time I was in Kauai, every hike I was on, every time I was in nature, I was like dancing into the joy and the bliss. I still get like tingles because I would literally feel tingles. Like I was running with the trees in this like magical forest, feeling all the trees contributing to this vision of me waking up in like a beautiful home that supported my work, that supports my spiritual experience and my meditation. And I just kept, it was already done. So energetically, and I kept doing it. Like it wasn't just a one-off thing. When I was in the car driving to go swim with dolphins, I was like playing like music that opened up the field in my body and like seeing it all already done. Anytime my mind tried to go into any sort of contraction or figure out how, I went into the already done. And just like continued to do that for like 3 weeks, really.
Yeah.
Every time I was moving my body.
I love this repetition. Like there's something around, okay, yeah, I can be in the state where it's already here, it's on its way, but I have to sustain that state. It can't just be a glimpse of, oh, that's a possibility. It's more like, no, I have to be bathed in it, because there is something about when we hit our limiting beliefs where we start to, like, we think that's the default, right? But we have to rewire that. And rewiring takes longer than just, oh, I had a revelation. Rewiring's like, no, I'm consistently in the habit of seeing myself in a multi-million-dollar palace and temple. Yeah. And that's my natural state.
Yes. And it doesn't change. Like that practice, like even once you maybe manifest the big thing, like you actually have to continue seeing it. And then the next version of it. And it's actually like, it's a practice we get to sustain because there's so many areas of our life to like be pointing our attention in the direction of our desire. And it's a co-creation. So that's why it's like, it's more about the energy and the frequency, but this, like the worthiness is where it all starts. Like the knowing that you are worthy of being loved and taken care of, like this much.
Yeah.
So I got home from Kauai and then somehow followed some guidance and went on some Craigslist listing that didn't have any photos. And it was like for a temporary situation. And I just felt guided to respond. And this woman emailed me back, and it was the owner of this multi-million-dollar house that I'd been envisioning myself living in. Wow. Who is renting it out while she sells it. And I'm moving there next month.
Woohoo! That's great.
And that was like, oh, it's still like, I thought I didn't know how to manifest a house. There was a lot of stuff I had running in the background before. And when I realized, because when I was in Kauai, I had practiced receiving small things like a coconut or like, I mean, it's not a small thing, but I was like on a hike and I saw horses and I was like, I want to ride a horse. And then 15 minutes later, a horse showed up with a guy who was like, would you like a ride?
Yeah, I love it.
Yes. I know I just got the ride because you saw me taking naked photos, but I will ride and I will ride in the back and you will not get to touch me, but I will receive the gift.
Yeah. Receiving those gifts, like small and like whether they're small or large, but just the being in the practice of yes, like yes. I am in the yes, I am receiving, because it's like so often it's like I want that, but there's all these conditions. I don't want to feel indebted to you. I don't want to feel like I have to give back. And like I love that you're just like, I'm in the practice of saying yes. Yeah,
Yeah. And like, I will ride on your horse in a bikini, but not feel like you get anything sexual. Like it's like, I knew my presence was enough of a gift. Yep. And that's a really beautiful and empowering thing to know, that all of our presence is a gift when we're embodied in love, and people just want to be around that. And so they want to give to that. Yeah. And receiving it as part of them receiving even more, of that love.
it's really deep. The house for you is very real, and it was magically like aligned, but it's also a metaphor for anyone listening. It's like, hey, the house is like, what is that next level of, when you are deserving, when you're worthy, how can the universe reflect back to you your worth? And so it kind of brings me to this deep question I have for people who, don't feel worthy. And it's like, okay, yeah, consciously I get that I'm worthy, but my core wound and something is stuck inside that says I don't deserve, a coconut or a horseback ride, or I just don't deserve it. Like, what do you say to that?
So one of the practices that I did for my own self-worth is like simple. It was looking into my own eyes every day in the mirror and telling myself I loved myself. And it was super uncomfortable when I started. It was hard to do it, and telling myself that I was amazing and that I was worthy. But when you're looking into your own eyes, like you're not gazing at yourself from a distance, you're looking directly into your soul. And so you're speaking to that part of you. And then any part that is like not congruent with that, that's like that inner child little one. And so that's going to come up. And that's learning how to have that compassion for that part of you and to not judge it. And like, it's okay that you don't know you're worthy yet. Like, I'm here to teach you and tell you that you are. And it's also okay if you don't believe me yet. Or that if you don't trust me yet. So there's, it's like, that's why we're on this personal development, spiritual journey as a human. We have all these parts of ourselves that are like always being asked to be returned to love. And as we do that, then the self-worth gets built. And then one of my other favorite practices that I teach clients, once they've like done the I love you, the next level of that is like self-pleasuring in the mirror. And as you're looking, and you look into your own eyes as you're orgasming.
Yeah.
And that creates a whole nother level of like receiving your own love.
Yeah.
Love.
I love this, like, most embodied self-love. It's like you're self-pleasuring in the mirror, telling yourself you love yourself, showering yourself with orgasmic energy, and the unconditionality of it, which is that even if you don't believe it or you still feel you're unlovable, that's lovable too.
Yeah.
It's so beautiful.
Yeah. And it's okay if it takes time to like build up to that. It's really the willingness. Like, I'm willing to start to see this differently. I'm willing to know my worth. I don't know how, but I'm willing. Like, that's all that's required. And the minute you have that, it's like a ping, and all the parts of the universe are going to start arranging themselves to be like, here, like, here's this way. Here's how you can know you're worthy here. Yeah. And here, we're going to give you this lever, and he's just going to like adore you in your body. And like, you can't help but fucking know you're worthy.
Yeah. And that willingness, even if you're not yet capable, like the capacity will grow to the degree of your willingness. Like, I just want to name how uncomfortable it is for some people to orgasm with the lights on, like, just because our faces, O face can be so like, like it's not a vain thing. You lose transcend your self-consciousness. And so to be able to have like that, okay, I'm going to even love my O face in its ugly animal or whatever comes through, and then to eventually start repatterning that is beautiful. Like, it's the next level of self acceptance and worth.
Yeah. And like on like a sort of quantum physics level, you're utilizing the frequency of, sorry, I don't know if the construction's coming through, but there's some out there now. You're using the frequency or orgasmic energy to amplify that healing. So like every time you're choosing a little teeny bit more of self-love, even if it's a micro amount, you are getting it amplified when you're orgasming.
Yeah.
So if you continue with the practice, it's just going to get easier and easier. Cool. And if you can love your O face and love however you show up when you're by yourself, there will be no self-consciousness when you're with someone else.
Right. Which makes you a more uninhibited lover.
Exactly. I do give disclaimers sometimes with lovers. I'm like, so I'm going to probably call in some ascended masters or some other things into our, our time together. So
Yeah.
just like, are you cool with that? Other beings being here. And I don't know what sounds or faces I'm going to make, but are you like cool with that? And then that gives me full permission to just channel whatever the fuck wants to come through. And then it's like, it gets freaky, but it's amazing.
Wonderful. Yeah, that orgasmic bliss of receiving, and it's even receiving the non-physical, not just the, receiving those physical gifts, but the non-physical guides and support and inspiration that can come through when that channel is open.
Yeah, exactly. You're receiving the energetic information, which is available in all things. So like that house, even though it's technically a physical solid thing, it actually was a being, and it was communicating information to me energetically. And I was like receiving that information. And that's what we have the ability to do. You can do it with your pussy. You can do it with your cock. Like you can do it with your body. Like I teach clients to do this too. Like when they've done interesting things with their sexual energy, there's like a whole, like, let's relearn how to receive the information from your body. So receiving so goes beyond like just receiving lots of money, but that's really fun too. And
yeah, so it's like there's
pleasure.
Receiving from the outside world, but there's also receiving the wisdom that comes through, and being open to receive that, like you said, that infinite intelligence, that information that's at the basis of the material.
Yeah. And what's required is really just wonder and curiosity. Like and to stay out of a fixed perspective and just like, oh, I wonder. If everything is energy, everything's always changing. So like nothing is what you think it is. So being in the wonder, you are open to receiving the actual energetic information about that thing, whether that's a lover, whether that's a house, whether that's your business, whether that's something about the body.
Yeah. And I just want to bring it back to like receiving our worth. Like, I wonder who I'd be if I were worthy. Like, if you don't genuinely believe that you're worthy yet, to be open to, what would it look like if I were? Like, let me imagine, or be curious about what worthy would feel like in my system. Yeah, it's important, I think, because you're like vibrating and manifesting at such a high level, it's important for some people to be like, what are some baby steps in that direction? Because they can't always like access like, a temple in Kauai. And yeah, and it's beautiful for you to role model that.
Yes. And I absolutely agree. Like you want to find the ways that are bite-sized, that are approachable, and that are believable, like for your system. Like, what can I sort of get behind that would help me show myself that I am worthy? And whether that's like charging $50 more for your service or $20 more, like you can find these sort of micro ways to start increasing. Or is it like, because I had to start with some smaller ways, right? Like it started because in the beginning of my business, I was a little bit more just like hustling, and I didn't totally know my worth. And I said yes to a lot of last minute clients, to like working on Sundays and late nights and all of that. And as I like built my worth, I stopped doing that. But I had to like confront a lot of things too, because when I stopped and said no, it wasn't all magic right away.
Right.
There was like some no money periods of like, wait. And then that was the practice, was to like trust, nope, I am worthy. I don't need money to tell me that I'm worthy. Nothing outside of me needs to tell me that I'm worthy. And it was a consistent practice over and over again of like, how am I going to choose to show up that's honoring of me? And in a simple way, like saying no to this client that wants to see me at 9 p.m. and it's 8 p.m.,
Yeah. And it's there's those tests, those moments of like, okay, the universe may not be providing a reflection of my worth and I'm being tested to know my worth in any and all circumstances. Like, that's how we actually grow. It's easy to know you're worthy if like you're being showered and treated like a queen, but to actually stand in your worth when the circumstances are not going your way. And that's, it's so empowering to know that like I can stand in this, and yeah, it's being tested, and I might waver momentarily, but like being in it when the world's not reflecting it to me is how I know I'm growing. Yeah. So I love the example of you just like surrounded by the beauty of Kauai, like practicing the abundance until it actually manifested, like even. Such a good metaphor.
And I get to continue because I'm just like now increasing, right? I'm increasing my expenses. And so I noticed like more stuff that got to come up of like, no, I'm like worthy of this. And this is not like, the mind wanted to point back to times when I didn't think I was worthy, and that this might turn into that.
And there's another piece of worthiness too, for me, which is that place of like a deep prayer, God, Goddess, give me as much worth, value, abundance, power that I'm willing to use on your behalf. So part of the worthiness is like, it's not just for my personal gain. It's like, I'm doing this, I'm receiving so that I can be nurtured and I can like give back to the awakening. I can be part of the world's waking up. I can serve others. I can support. And so I do want to say that like, yes, we're focusing on receiving because that's usually the limiting step, but receiving is a partial, like it's part of the larger whole, and the whole ecology needs the receiving and the serving, at the same time to be whole. Otherwise we can get out of balance. But I do think you're right. It's like, okay, this is the muscle we need to stretch, especially those of us that are service oriented.
Yeah. And am I going to trust divinity and like source and all the angels like that they're going to continue to give so that I can be this vessel and be of service? Because I'm like, I love that you pointed to that, because that's always like, that was the sort of underlying call. Yeah. It was really not about me and not about the house. It was like, this is what my soul said she would do.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's on behalf of the planet. And so like, I don't know how, and it's scary to the person, but like, I'm trusting and saying yes. And then also for all the people that are like around me that have said like, can you please do this first? Like, okay, fine.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's a really beautiful thing, because that is working in that co-creation. It's that balance of like, I'm not making something happen because I need it to happen, but I'm also receiving like, this is the nudge. And so am I willing to say yes? And then also trust that because this is a bigger nudge and I'm here for the greatest good and I'm here for love, that it's all here to serve.
Yeah. Aho. It's beautiful. I want to, I am happy to be introducing you to my community, and would love to hear if someone wants to, to deepen, to maybe meet you in Kauai, or, continue to connect with you. How should they stay in touch?
Yeah. So I work with like VIP clients and other clients via Zoom, and then they come sometimes and do immersions in person. So I kind of create custom ways to work with people wherever they're at. And I'm also in the process of creating a course so that those that cannot, do the one-on-one can experience some of the energy work. And my website is AurelieDevon.com. That's AurelieDevon. And it's the same handle on Instagram. And all of my stuff is on my website. You can sign up for my email list.
And I'll attach your links here. And, I just am delighted. It's been such a pleasure working with you. I have loved watching, supporting your evolution and love leadership. And I wanted, it's that thing of like, I want the world to get a taste of your medicine. And so thanks for co-creating. I look forward to more conversations like this. And yeah, and I would love to hear from anyone watching just how Aurelie inspired you or touched you. Please comment and stay in touch.
Thank you so much. Such a pleasure. I'm so grateful for you. Thank you for being, the way shower.
Thank you. Blessings. Bye, beautiful.
Blessings. Bye.